right now. Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Bob Pompeani here. Chris Mueller up at 93.7 The Fan on a night that we saw Pittsburgh sports not have a good day in the city of New York or in the surrounding area because the Penguins lost tonight. The Pirates lost earlier. Chris, I want to first ask you about a classy move by the Islanders. I first want to get that off the top of the show here, talking about how they came over at the end of the game to salute Jeff Carter on an outstanding career. This was his final game. He confirmed that afterwards. He got a goal. They were trying to feed him too much, and it cost them a goal, actually, when they should have just cleared the puck. Instead, Brian Russ is trying to lead him on a headman pass. But they end up losing. But, you know, when you look at the obituary at the end of this season for this year, how would you explain it to someone who didn't see the whole season? And you have to surmise it, because me, it would be power play failures and not being able to put away games based on fundamental hockey. They couldn't do it at the end of games, and it cost them so many points.
I would say to try to write an obituary or do an autopsy of this season, it would be a lot of it would come down to sort of one core concept here, and that's that the Penguins were too in love with the idea that they were the Penguins of old. And
I think they're going to have to figure that out, but more importantly, they're going to have to try to get younger at critical positions. I don't know how you do that. Then there's the goaltending dilemma as well. Tristan Jarry, I thought they would play him tonight, Chris, and they didn't. They went back to Nedeljkovic, and he was good, although he got hung out to dry a little bit, and this is the problem when you play for this team. So they got a lot of questions in what should be a very interesting offseason, although I do not expect Mike Sullivan to be gone. I do expect some coaching changes.
Mike Sullivan should be gone if you were being justifiable in terms of how they've performed the last several years, but he won't be. At bare minimum, Mike Sullivan should have be on double secret probation. Hey, you've got till Christmas to prove that you're still the right guy. You've got to make some changes. If not, you're gone. I think that's very reasonable. I don't know what you do with Jarry's deal. Who wants that? Nobody. I mean, it's just you'd have to retain salary, which means you're not saving as much. I do like a guy like St. Ivany as your sixth defenseman. I think that's a find for them late in the season here. And you're going to have to get young. Achari, guys like that on that fourth line, Nieto. I know that they had injury issues with some of those guys, but that fourth line was an abyss for the most part. And they really need to find some young, cheap forwards who can plug in on their bottom six, or else, Bob, they're going to run into a lot of the same problems that befell them this year. Too top-heavy and too reliant on Sidney Crosby.
Right, and Crosby had a heck of a season with 43 goals, over 90 points to lead the way. I thought Michael Bunting fit in well here. He and P.O. Joseph, I think it's time for Joseph to get a little bit more love on the blue line and get more of a prominent role, because I thought he got better as this season moved on. We're going to take a break here. Chris will take phone calls at 412-575-2600. Also get into the Pirates, who got swept in New York. The Mets did a number on them. Bullpen was not good. Clutch hitting didn't exist, and the Pirates lost 9-1. It's all coming up on KDKA Plus and 93.7 The Fan. Welcome back. Our GMC Sierra tweet of the night comes from Codify, and it says Jared Jones has walked 2 batters. He struck out 32 in his first 4 starts. Yet yesterday, he was only in there for 5 innings, 59 pitches. He was blowing people away, and yet he got taken out of the game. They said it was predetermined that he was going to go 5, and that's it, which is interesting considering that the first couple of games he had, Chris, he was over 85, 1 over 90, and all of a sudden a retraction back to 59, whatever it was. Makes me wonder about Paul Skeens. If that's the case, you may as well have him up here if you're going to just look for 55 to 58 pitches, and he can do his, his work up here instead of down there, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, I saw Joe Starkey tweet something to that same effect, Bob, and I respectfully disagree with you, and I disrespectfully disagree with Joe about it. They have made it very clear that one of their objectives with Paul Skeens in the minors, maybe their main objective, is to merely get him accustomed and acclimated to the pro pitching cycle of once every 5 days, since he was more like once every 7 days at LSU. And I think that's fine and reasonable. And so it would make more sense to just do that in the minors and then bring him up to the majors more fully formed. Jared Jones has been a pro since he was 18 years old. Therefore, he's been on a pro pitching schedule for multiple years. That's what I think the difference is there, and why I don't agree with the Skeens comparison. And I might also be the only person in the greater Pittsburgh area, or one of the only people, not mad about what they did. I think their strategy with Jones is going to be every couple of starts or so, like you saw yesterday, no matter how good he looks. They have a predetermined number of innings, and I thought Shelton was a little clumsy in his explanation, because is it innings, is it pitches? He said kind of both. But I think they're basically going to have one throttled start or so out of every 5. And I think their heart is in the right place. They're trying to protect a valuable, obviously electric arm talent in their rotation.
Yeah, I get all that, and that's fine. The funny thing about this sweep, and looking back over the last 8 games where the Pirates are 2-6, their team starter ERA is 2.86. That's good. The problems have been they can't hit, and their bullpen has failed them, and it did again today. Well, let's get to the lines. We got a lot of people want to talk. So, welcome to the hotline, line 1. That's Jerry and Franklin right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Hey, Jerry.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. A couple things. I love the Jared Triola story. I love having his glove in the lineup, but I'm concerned that the guy's just not going to be much of a hitter. I'm wondering how long you think before maybe a Nick Gonzalez or a Tamar Johnson is up taking his place. And then I went through all of the minor league stats of the Pirate outfielders, and it seems like we've got outfielders that just aren't up to par, and they don't seem to have much of anybody. Do you think they would ever take a shot at Austin Meadows and bring him in a minor league contract and see if they can rehab his career?
I don't think they're going to do that, but I also think they have issues in a lot of different places. You mentioned Triolo. I think he's okay. I'm more concerned about Henry Davis, his bat. I'm concerned about Sawinski and his consistent hitting. There are a lot of guys. Cruz is not doing well. He's striking out.
Bob?
Yeah, he's striking out an awful lot, swinging and missing at a lot of different pitches. And for that matter, Brian Hayes has cooled off, and Andrew McCutchen has struggled. So they're not getting anything from anyone, basically.
Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? Brian Hayes, too, is dealing with lower back tightness and back issues again, something that seems to be chronic for him. Triolo, just to mention him quickly, the glove is really good, but, man, you just want so much more in the way of real power and functional in-game power from a guy who's that big and that tall. And I know he can occasionally knock one out of the park, but, like, I guess the hitting prowess just doesn't match the figure that he cuts at home plate, and that's a problem. Bob, I'll tell you this. I'm worried about Cruz for sure, but he at least has sort of an excuse that he missed almost all of last year. I don't think that actually is a viable excuse, but you can cross your fingers and hope that it actually is the reality. Henry Davis looks like a complete mess right now. The Chapman wild pitch, the strikeout and the runner reaches, and that starts the Mets rally. Davis has got to block that ball. At first look, I thought maybe it was very wild, but clearly he's got to make that play. Shelton felt like he had to make that play. And at the plate, I don't know about you, aren't you getting tired of seeing the former #1 overall pick, who was supposed to be mainly that pick because of his bat, swing through 94-mile-an-hour fastballs over the middle of the plate? I mean, he just looks lost right now in that area, and that's the whole reason that he's basically in their lineup.
Yeah, and they got to get that right, regardless of how they do it. If it means going down and trying to figure it out, so be it. A lot of guys have done that, and now that Yasmani Grandal is on a rehab, he'll be up here pretty good. I know Joey Bart got hit on the head the other day in batting practice, so who knows what's going to happen here. Let's back to the lines. We got DJ in Pittsburgh. Hey, DJ, how you doing?
Hey, guys, I just wanted to say I don't think it's the coach that's the issue. I think you can have Coach Bob Johnson back coaching, and you're coaching 38, 39-year-old players, and that's the problem with the Penguins. They're just too old. You know it, I know it, and I think it's time to start focusing on the NFL draft.
Well, I would have a question, though. I would have a question for that, and it's this. And I would, on its face, I would agree with the assessment. They're too old. How do you explain how good the team was all year as a 5-on-5 hockey team? I know one explanation is, well, Sidney Crosby's line was dominant in terms of that kind of play, and Crosby's great and showing no signs of slowing down, but they were dominant as a 5-on-5 team. They were plenty good enough playoff, as far as being a playoff team if it was just 5-on-5, man.
You're looking for a scapegoat, and you got to look at the face of the players. They're too old. Come on. I mean, you can have good.
Well, no, I think that's a legitimate point. We've talked about it before. The 5-on-5 is good. The problem is their power play, and the problem is they haven't changed anything on their power play. Jeff Carter was on there tonight in kind of a ceremonial role. I thought he should have been used more. They should have mixed and matched some things better. It's just they defer to the same people. Eric Carlson was brought in here to be the guy on the power play, and the power play regressed big time. That, to me, is the number one reason why they didn't make the playoffs.
Coaching. That's coaching, and I guess to put
deferring,
a very clear
it's deferring
point,
to the star power. That's the problem.
Sure,
You got to sometimes
it's never
sit
wanting
down.
Yes, it's never wanting to change what you're doing because you've got a ton of egos at play, which no one ever wants to say with hockey players. They're all humble, salt-of-the-earth guys. Wrong. There are big egos when you have big talent on any team in any sport. The Penguins are a case study. I just want to put a fine point on it. If the Penguins, if age was a huge problem, you would think it would show up most at 5-on-5 and they'd be getting dominated. And I just want to point out for the record that is not the case. Quite the opposite, in fact.
Right, and it's just power play and a stubbornness that never changes. And, we saw them give up a shorthanded goal on a 5-on-3 at the end of a game this year. We saw them score on their own goal on a delayed penalty. All these things happen with all these superstar players. And again, it's carelessness, it's willingness to just try to make the big highlight play at the expense of maybe giving up something cheap. And that's what they did a lot of this year. And now all you have to do is look how they were so close, 1, 2, 3, 4 points along the way. And there are so many examples we could throw at you. Let's go to John in Cranberry, who joins us right now. Hey, John.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Bob and Chris. Appreciate it. Just quick shout out to Jeff Carter. Really solid career. I thought it was a very nice send-off tonight at the end of the game by the players, both the Islanders and the Penguins, a tribute to him. But my question is a little bit away from Pittsburgh sports. I wanted you guys' take on the Jontay Porter lifetime ban by the NBA today. And from what I read, he was betting on personal in-game parlays where he was sitting out the game.
Yeah, prop betting.
So, yeah, cross betting. So I know you guys like the NBA and everything, but even besides the NBA, what's your feedback on in-game betting, with all the FanDuel, DraftKings? Do you think this is something that sports is going to look at, or can they do anything to control in-game betting?
Well, I mean, if you're a player, you just got to stop doing it if you know what the rules are there. And it's disingenuous in so many ways, Chris, because all of these teams have now embraced it. They're part of the team philosophy. If you go to games like at PPG Paints Arena, what do you see? You see a Bet Rivers casino in the game. So it is a problem, but if you're a player, you just got to put it away and not do it when you're playing, period.
You know me, Bob. I'm usually a cynic and say things like, well, the players deserve maybe they think they're not getting enough a cut, but they are getting a lot of that gambling revenue. Like, they split that revenue, so the players see more of that money. They see that. That's part of the deal here. You didn't just have the gambling companies cozy up with the leagues and the owners take it all. How do you stop it? You don't. You just assume that there won't be any more Jontay Porters, that there would be anybody brain dead enough to actually make brazen bets like that and offer inside info to people that you could directly impact. I mean, the NBA had to make an example out of him. They were right to do it. What he did was unforgivable, but I really think the onus here at this point now does fall on the players. Just, hey, you're making millions of dollars in most cases. Just don't do what he did.
Don't do it.
It's pretty simple.
To me, it's a simple thing. It really is. And you're right, though. They have to handle it in a very matter-of-fact way, stern way to send a message, and I think that's something that needs to happen in a lot of different parts of our country right now. Let's go. By the way, good game tonight. Miami lost to the 76ers. 76ers now will take on the Knicks, where Miami gets a home game against the winner of the 9-10 game. Anyway, let's squeeze in Rick in Squirrel Hill real quick. What's up, Rick?
Hi, Bob and Chris. Hey, Bob, you remember Tom Seaver, Don Drysdale, Bob Gibson, Juan Marichal. They pitched a lot more innings they do today. None of them had arm problems. It seems like they pitched less today. Everybody has Tommy John. The other thing yesterday, I couldn't believe they took out Jones after 59 pitches, which I believe cost them the game. I couldn't even bother watching the game today. And then I saw Falter had only 73 pitches, and he's been pitching well.
Yes.
And they took him out.
He made one mistake, and he took him out. We got to go to a break. He took him out. We'll comment on this when we come back, Chris. But again, he made one bad pitch to Starling Marte. What am I saying here? I got all my Martes mixed up. And the next thing you know, they're down, and they get no offense. So it doesn't matter who's on the mound. You got to score more runs than they have. We got to take a break. Come back with more right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Weather was the big story tonight around our region, and right now Ken Rice has a preview of what's coming up at 11.
Yeah, Bob, we're covering all sorts of weather impacts around the area. Homes damaged, trees down, even a fire breaking out at Kennywood. We're live with the latest and the big promise President Biden made in Pittsburgh today to steelworkers. All coming up in minutes at 11, Bob.
All right, Ken, thanks very much. All right, Chris, Tommy John, why do you think there are so many cases of it where our previous caller made the point that these guys back then just pitched 12 innings if need be?
Because they weren't max efforting on every single pitch. That's just a fact. All these guys now are trying to throw 100 on every pitch, throw unbelievable wipeout sliders. Those guys just simply were not doing that back in the day. I also noticed he didn't use Sandy Koufax as an example, a guy who was throwing wicked fastballs and curveballs whose arm did give out on him. Guys today are just trying to throw harder with more spin every pitch. There's no art of pitching because there's no art of hitting, and that's going to keep causing these injuries. So I don't think the two eras are comparable at all.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I also think it starts way too early in their careers. I'm talking high school and doing stuff with their arms they should not be doing. We're out of time. All right, Mr. Chris Mueller, thank you very much. We'll see you again tomorrow night. That's going to do it for us every night. It's the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Good night.